I think we should have a brief sidebar conversation on this topic because I think there's one other strand here which I find genuinely confusing, and I still don't know how to differentiate this from what we're now talking about. But there does seem to be a species of assertion, and even the writing of manifestos in the white supremacist space, which seems like it's not as straightforward as that. I mean, you have this emergence of troll culture on 4chan and 8chan, and you have these, incel lunatics who are circulating what are taken at face value as white supremacist memes. They'll circulate Holocaust images or, lynching images, and they seem to
And they try and dress it up as irony or a joke.
well, yeah, but in many cases, it really is just a kind of a derangement or the most extreme expression of troll culture or shit posting, or, I mean, they're just trying to get a rise out of the normies. It's genuinely hard to see where that stops and real, in this case, white supremacist ideology begins. And there may be some Muslim variant of this. I don't know. I mean, there may be people who were categorized as aspiring ISIS followers, but who are really just in this land of, nihilism. And it's just like the emergence of Thanatos on the internet, where you have people who are not sincere about anything except they just want to see it all burn. And yet they're trading in the memes of ideological racism or ideological anti-Semitism. And I think it's genuinely confusing when you try to analyze it in the aftermath of a school shooting or a synagogue attack or Christchurch or any of these other
But isn't
episodes.
that but aren't those cases the ones that are actually clear? Like when the Christchurch gunman says, spends tons of time on social media posting these ironic memes and then says, I think he said literally, it's time to make a real life effort post. And then he goes out and murders 52 people. Isn't it
Hmm.
then clear that the irony is dressing up what is actually just the same disgusting hate?
Yeah, well, in that case, it might be clear, but in some other cases, it might not. I think it was in the case of Christchurch, he said something like he was radicalized by Candace Owens, right? So that on some level,
Right.
these are not sincere statements of propaganda. I mean, there's a kind of
I get what you're saying.
it is,
Yeah.
we're kind of living in the Batman universe, and there is just the fact that there's some number of people who just want to become famous and to commit suicide by cop, like a school shooting. There's the typology of the kind of person who just goes to their school to kill their classmates, and they may even, I mean, like in the case of Columbine, you had Eric Harris, one of the Columbine killers, who, in his journal, I think there was a lot of white supremacist stuff in his journal, but this was not an intelligible act of white supremacy. It's just the murder of children, right, by somebody who was deeply disturbed. And yet, if we'd spent a lot of time analyzing his journal, I think it would be possible to try to connect the dots in a white supremacist vein. And it's just, I mean, perhaps there's not much to read into this, but I do think that there are cases where the straightforward reading of here's more hate and its consequences doesn't run through in quite the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
guess I'll I guess I'll just say like when I see my face on many of these white supremacist forums and there is, a Pepe the Frog on me or
Mm.
the most recent one I saw was, the yellow star that the Nazis used to mark the Jews on my forehead. Yeah, maybe the person who put that up intended it as an ironic joke, but I'm certainly not seeing it that way. I'm seeing it as a threat.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'd say is like, I don't know. And there are experts, I'm sure there are many experts and many books that are coming out about this. My feeling is like err on the side of treating the irony deadly seriously. It's obviously a different, like I acknowledge though what you're saying though, which is it's a different beast and it's not as coherent maybe as jihadist ideology.
It's different in the sense that and it does kind of link up with the Trump phenomenon for me. It's just like, like Trump is somebody who is impressively lacking in ideology, right? I mean, he's just chaos. I mean, it's like the chaos of narcissism and selfishness and ignorance. A personality cult has formed around him, and I mean, to some degree, it's it's gaining energy from the opportunism and cowardice of normal Republicans who do have an ideology, but there is a just a spirit of, for lack of a better word, trolling that is animating this. Like it's just like let's just own the libtards. That's the goal. Like as long as Trump is making someone like me tear his hair out, well then that's all that needs to be accomplished. There are no more ideas behind this. Trump could change all of his policy commitments insofar as he has any tomorrow, and he wouldn't lose his support, right? He could
No, no,
just
of course, that's true. I'm thinking about the idea that, you know, a lot of these people basically imagine themselves like Heath Ledger
mm,
in The Joker. But Heath Ledger in The Joker still kills a ton of people.
right.
And like, the I've read the manifesto of the killer in Poway. And in a certain sense, it's, a mishmash poo-poo platter of anti-Semitism. Was he sounds like he came from a family, the reading what his parents said after the attack was just heartbreaking. Of like, we don't know where our child got these ideas. Did it start off ironic and become real? I don't know. I don't really care when I'm sitting with the daughter of Lori Gilbert Kay, who was murdered there. It's I guess it's not as interesting to me.
Yeah, well, I guess it just has to be, if it's yet another variable, we have to understand it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously ideas have consequences, and what we're taking ideas seriously here, in this case, anti-Semitic ideas, but, racist ideology has consequences, and,
Yeah.
any other form of tribalistic intolerance has consequences when it's, sincerely expressed and sincerely believed. And I just worry that there is another thing going on, which is, nihilistic, burn it all down chaos that is, in some cases, proving itself to be indistinguishable from sincerely held beliefs, right? And that's,
Mhm.
and again, I'm just expressing my confusion more than